Hi, everybody. Dr. Daryl Boston's here with Barrie Chiropractic and Health Services Center, continuing our in-office reception room Ask the Doctor series. Um, Playing with my building blocks, um, which remind me of an important topic that I wanted to discuss with you, and that is protein. So in my earlier part of my career, I can recall having a few cases where I was a bit frustrated because I didn't think that the person was getting well as fast as I would have expected them to. Um, Revisit our exam process, redo some tests, confirm that my working diagnosis is correct, change some techniques, try to find different ways to change the constitution of what's happening, and still things weren't going as well. Obviously, there's something more going on with this case. And in too many of those cases, I found that the person just simply wasn't getting enough protein in their diet. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. So the topic of nutrition can be understandably pretty intimidating to people. The concept of what is a carbohydrate, what is a fat, what is a protein, what are the sources of proteins, blah 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 blah. It can be pretty overwhelming. So I want to try to make this as simple as possible. It is important for you in today's day and age to understand what the difference between a protein, a carbohydrate, and probably a fat is. Those are the three, what we would call macronutrients that are necessary for life, aside from water. Micronutrients include vitamins, minerals, and such. But as far as proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, those are the three kind of big macronutrients that we need to be aware of. Carbohydrates are probably better understood by most people. Those are the sugars, and there's different types of carbohydrates, and we can talk about that maybe in another video. But I think for the most part, society has kind of figured out that if you have too many carbohydrates or carbs in your diet, you may start to store them as unwanted fat. So a strategy for people to lose weight has been to try to cut out some of the carbohydrate intake. So basically, carbohydrate is the energy, the fuel that your body uses to conduct its daily activities. Just like putting gasoline in your car engine, your body needs carbohydrate in order to make itself work. Fats are used for hormones, which are really important for various types of physiological processes. It's also used for the membranes of all of your cells, so obviously pretty important. Proteins are also very important and probably one of the least understood of macronutrients, and they're taken for granted too. So proteins are defined as the building blocks that make up what you see when you're looking at me. So if you look at me, my skin, my nails, the bone underneath, the muscles within my body, those things are made up of proteins, just like my Jenga building block tower here. You can't build a structure if you don't have the building materials to do it. So, if you are trying to get better and you're missing one of these proteins down here, the whole house can come down, which can obviously be a problem. So, proteins are made up of at least two smaller molecules that are known as amino acids. And you don't really need to know what the different amino acids are, but I think there's 21 of them. Most of them you can get fairly easy from your diet. And when two amino acids come together, that forms a protein. Depending on the type of protein we need, whether it's a muscle protein or a bone protein or whatever, it requires a different combination or a different number of amino acids. Take-home messages: if you want to build a cathedral and it takes 1,000 bricks and the supplier only gives you 500 bricks, you're going to have a pretty hard time building that cathedral. If you're dealing with an injury of some sort and your body's trying to repair itself and you're not giving enough building blocks to repair itself with, you're going to have a hard time getting better. So, how much protein do we need? And this is the trouble with what I found with some cases. In general, the average person needs somewhere between 0.4 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So it really depends on how active you are. So if you look at exercise, for example, a fairly vigorous exercise. You're working out. You're stressing your muscles, and what you're doing really is you're damaging that muscle somewhat. You're breaking it down and destroying some of the proteins inside the muscle. Your body, being pretty smart, says, "Wow, this activity that you've got me doing is creating a bit of a stress that I can't keep up with. Therefore, I'm going to make things a little bit stronger here. I'm going to add a little bit more in here to make up for it." And after the damage is done from working out or whatever the case may be, your body takes some protein from your diet and it fills in the cracks and the crevices to fix that tissue, and you carry on like nothing happened. So depending on how active you are, you might need more or less protein, but as a general rule, males need somewhere between 0.5 and 0.0 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. So if you're a triathlete and you're working out lots and lots and lots, or if you're growing, right? So if you're a child and you're growing up to say 20, 21, something like that, then you're probably going to need on the upper part of that scale. If you're kind of middle age and kind of taking it easy and doing your thing, then you probably need closer to about 0.5 gram. And females are probably 0.4 to 0.7 grams, depending on what it is that they're doing. So we have a handout for this I'm going to draw your attention to, and it shows you here what the requirements are. If you want it, just let us know. We'll hand it off to you. So quick math. If you're a 180-pound male, so I'm about 180 pounds, I need somewhere between 90 and 144 grams of protein per day. 150-pound female, 60 to 105 grams of protein today. Now, you got to get in the habit of looking at nutritional labels. So most food that you buy will have it. Well, I think in Canada it's mandatory now. It's law. Every single thing that you buy has to have a label on it that tells you what's in it. And a lot of times it'll tell you grams of protein, grams of carbohydrate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There aren't too many things in this world that are made up of protein other than meats, because protein is the building blocks of another living organism, essentially. So in order for you to take on protein, you have to consume those building blocks from something else. So obviously the most readily available protein would be meat. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about chicken, pork, beef, fish, lamb. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what type of meat we're talking. Any of those pieces of meat about the size of the palm of your hand will equal about 40 grams of protein. So as I just said a minute ago, a guy my size needs somewhere between 90 and 140 grams of protein per day. So if I have a piece of meat that's about that big in my sandwich at lunch, and again, maybe at supper time, that's going to be 80 grams of protein. And that isn't quite enough to sustain my body, especially if I'm being pretty active. So on this sheet that you can get from us, and we'll let you zoom in on it a little bit, if you can see it, on the column here, it'll tell you some of the most common sources of protein. So we have eggs, different types of cheeses, and different types of beans. So beans have lots of protein in it. The problem with beans is that they don't always have a complete complement of amino acids. So remember I said earlier that a protein is made up of 2 amino acids? Well, the thing is that your body needs all 21 of those amino acids. And soybeans, for example, does not carry that full complement of amino acids. If you look, where is soybeans? Down at the bottom. So half a cup of soybeans carries 11 grams. So if you look at the list of all the different sources of proteins here, 11 grams is really high. The only thing that comes close to that is the meat. And I'm not trying to advocate people to eat meat. I know some people don't for various reasons. This isn't a political discussion. I'm just stating facts. Some people think that eggs have a really high source of protein. They only have 6 grams, right? Cottage cheese, however, has a very high number of grams, right? So about a half a cup of cottage cheese, a cup of milk, 8 grams, peanut butter, somewhat. So back down to the soybeans, there's 11 grams of protein in a soybean. The problem is that it doesn't have the full complement of amino acids, so you can't build your cathedral because you'll be missing certain types of amino acids. You can get the full complement of amino acids if you're mixing various types of beans together. And that might require a little bit more specialty talk, and Dr. Karen Snow is somebody that can help you with that if you have any questions regarding that. Okay? So, take-home message here. there aren't a ton of sources of protein really. Oh, and tofu, that's another good one too, at the bottom. So 10 grams. We didn't check and see how much tofu that would be. I think it's equal to about the size of a pair of dice, equals about 10 grams. So that's a pretty good source of protein too. Okay, so if you're feeling sore, if you feel like you're having a hard time recovering from injuries, if you feel like you're stiff in the mornings and such, it may be because you're not getting enough protein. So really easy to do a protein profile. You take a look at what you're eating on an average day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. You can use this sheet to figure out how much protein you're getting. Subtract that from how much you should be getting, and you'll know how much more you need. Protein shakes I did not include on this list because every protein shake's a little bit different, but if you check the nutrition label, you'll see it'll tell you how much protein is available in that shake. Just be aware of the source. If it's soy-based protein shake, you know you're going to be missing some of the amino acids. Keep in mind also that, if you buy a shake, for example, that's got 40 grams of protein in it, you're not likely going to be able to use all that in one serving. So you're kind of better off spreading it out throughout the day. A 20 gram thereabouts serving of a protein shake seems to be fairly common, but you shouldn't rely on shakes to supplement 100% of your protein needs. That's another discussion. I hope this has been helpful. Everybody should know about how much protein they need, and you should have an idea how much you're getting a day. So figure it out. If you do the math real quick, you get an idea of what you need. Take a look at what you're eating. If you're not getting enough, find a way to top it up. If you have any questions, please ask. And please know that we very much appreciate you being part of our practice. Thanks for participating and listening. We'll talk soon.